So welcome to today's talk about navigating funder demands on open access. My name is Martin and I work at the library here at Linköping University. This webinar is part of LIO Open Access Week. And if you want to check out the other webinars, you can click on, well, you can't click on it, but you can take a photo of the QR code I have here and you will get to our webpage for the webinars. This talk will also be recorded and available at some time point at this webpage. And I highly encourage you to have your smartphone or take screenshots or whatever suits you, because I will use a lot of QR codes to enable easy access to all the different links that I have throughout this presentation. Yes, so first a little bit about what is open science. So if you check the National Library in Sweden, Kungliga biblioteket, they have national guidelines for open science, and they mention these 6 different areas: public engagement in science, infrastructure supporting open science, open educational resources, open research methods, open access to research data, and open access to scholarly publications. And today, when I talk about open access, I'm only focusing on open access to scholarly publications. I'm not touching open access to research data at all. That's another topic that we can talk to you about another day. So what is open access then? Well, basically, a bit simplified, you can say that it's everything you get access to without a library subscription. So if you're sitting at home on your private laptop and you find something that you want to read and you can read it, well, then it's open access. And here, I just want to give you a quick tip to install Unpaywall. It's a web browser plugin. And if you surf around the web, you come across a journal article that you want to read. It's behind a paywall. Then perhaps this little padlock up in the right corner that I've shown you here, if it's open like this, it means Unpaywall have identified a legal open access version of this publication. It can be a self-archived version on Diva, for instance. So then if you click on this padlock, you will be rerouted to this legal open access version. So the different business models for academic journals, they're very tightly tied to different types of open access. So if you look on the figure here with the 4 quadrants, if you look on the top right quadrant, that's perhaps what people traditionally view as academic journals. So you pay to read science. Sometimes there is a fee for paid charges or color charges, but you don't pay an article processing charge to publish. Here you can quite often still make your research open access through self-archiving, although there can be different terms set by the publishers for this. Yes. On the top left quadrant, you have still journals where you have to pay to read the majority of the research, but you can pay to make your individual publication open access. In the bottom half, we have journals where everything is free to read, but you have to pay to publish. In gold journals and in diamond journals, they have some other business model. Maybe they're financed by a university, for instance, that pays for the costs of the journal. So here, this and the next slide is perhaps the most important of today's talk. So feel free to take a photo of it to go back to later. So if you have any worries or questions about what do my funder demand of me for this research project, remember to check what you have signed in your paperwork. If that's not clear enough, check the funder website. They should have information on their demands. And if your funder happens to be a Coalition S member, then there is Journal Checker tool. That's a handy tool that you can use to check where it is okay to publish your research. So generally, so this regards to Vetenskapsrådet, Forte, Formas, Vinnova, and Horizon Europe. All of them, they demand immediate open access, either through the publication itself or direct self-archived version. Horizon Europe, they additionally always demand a self-archived version immediately. So even if you make the publication open access, with them, you still have to make a self-archived version directly. And the publication types that are encompassed by these demands, it differs a bit. For Vetenskapsrådet and Horizon Europe, it's everything that's scientific publications. So everything that's peer-reviewed has to be published open access immediately. For Forte, Formas, and Vinnova, it's journals, conferences, and platforms. And for all of these, for the funders, you have to use a CC BY license. There are some exceptions, but generally, remember CC BY, and you should be safe. And the Coalition S members, so Forte, Formas, Vinnova, and Horizon Europe, they're part of this initiative that's called Coalition S. They additionally have a rights retention strategy. That could be an entire webinar for itself. So I'm just going to mention that it's there and show you some things that they're linked to this strategy, which means that you have to include some text in your manuscripts to meet the funder demands. So remember to take a photo of this slide if you want to go back to it later. I'm giving you a few seconds for it. Yes, so to my anonymous colleague who hates bullet points, sorry, there will be some bullet points now. So for Vetenskapsrådet, these rules applies from grants that were approved from October 2022, and it's to all scientific publications, including books and book chapters. You have to publish everything open access immediately, the publication itself, or immediate self-archive with a CC BY license. So it's not enough to have a self-archive without a CC BY license, and this goes for all the self-archive options. They need to have a CC BY license on the self-archived version. And then there is an exception. In some cases, you can use a CC BY non-commercial, non-derivative, but you don't have to remember this. Check it up if it comes up for you in your particular case. For Forte, so then they were a bit earlier, so they have these demands from 2021. Here it's for conference and journal publications. They don't mention platforms, but I think that is because they haven't thought about platforms yet, because they explicitly write that monographs and anthologies are exempt from these demands. So publications aren't mentioned anywhere. So I would say publications are like, it's in the spirit of what they want you to do, to still think that the demands apply for publications published in platforms. Still immediate open access. It's the same as Vetenskapsrådet publication or immediate self-archive with a CC BY license. And here you also need to include some text that I'm going to show you on the next slide. Sometimes if you yourself demand it, and I think you have to appeal for it, you can use a CC BY non-derivative. Yeah, and monographs and anthologies are exempt here. So this text here, this is part of the rights retention strategy. So you need to include this text in your manuscript when you submit it to a journal. I'm not going to read it. You can take a photo or photo the QR code and look it up later. Formas, very similar to Forte, and that's probably because they're part of the same Coalition S. Here they mention publishing platforms, and otherwise it's the same as for Forte. They also have this rights retention strategy, very similar text. So you need to include this text in your manuscript, and basically that's to make certain that the journals you don't sign anything by accident that makes you unable to meet the funder demands and publish your research with a CC BY license. Vinnova, again, it's identical to the previous ones. And they also have, again, this text then. And if you have any questions about rights retention strategy, contact us and we will help you talk about this, because it can be a bit tricky to think about it by oneself. Whereas in Europe, then they're still part of Coalition S, but they have harsher or stricter demands. So as Vetenskapsrådet, they demand that everything that's peer-reviewed and scientific publications needs to be available with immediate open access, and this includes books and book chapters. And as I mentioned before, even if you make the publication itself open access, you also need to immediately, upon publication, make a self-archived version in a repository. That can be Diva, for instance. And they demand that you use a CC BY license for articles and book chapters, and then you have more freedom to choose the Creative Commons license for long text formats. I can't say exactly what differs long text format from a book chapter, for instance. Book chapters to me can be long, but that's the text that they use. And they have a similar rights retention strategy, but here they give you an example of what you can use rather than saying you need to include exactly this. It's the same spirit as earlier. You as the authors say that we will make accepted author manuscripts available later with a CC BY license stemming from this work. So if you're thinking, well, this is a lot to take in, and if you have a Coalition S member funder, then you're in luck, because they have developed a tool called Journal Checker Tool, where you can write, well, which journal do I want to publish in? What is my funder and my institution? And then say I want to publish in Nature, and I have Formas as a funder, and I'm at Linköping University. Then in this case, you get 3 different options back, where you can read more about these different routes. Maybe it can be because they have a transformative agreement, for instance, or you can use rights retention strategies, etc. And if I want to publish in PNAS, for instance, and I have Vinnova as a funder and work at LiU, then I get a response that says there are no publishing options that are aligned with your funder's open access policy. So this tool, and they recommend this tool themselves, they have developed it themselves, so they should have accurate information here. So I highly recommend this tool to you if you have any of these funders. Vetenskapsrådet is not covered by it because they're not part of Coalition S. Well, so when you want to publish, maybe you don't want to spend your grant money directly on the publishing costs. So then you're in luck because we have a lot of library deals. Then you might ask, can I use them? So there are some requirements for this. You have to be the corresponding author on the publication. You have to be LiU affiliated and use your LiU affiliation both in the manuscript and the publisher's manuscript submission system. And you should always use your LiU email address as well. And so I just mentioned affiliations. If you're uncertain about how to write the proper affiliation, well, then we have a guide for you. If you work at the medical faculty and Region Östergötland, you can check it out here. Just follow the QR code. Yeah, and otherwise, just contact us and we will help you with it if you have any doubts. And well, how do I know which journals are part of the library deals? Well, so there are 3 steps here, I would say. First, you scan the QR code I have here. Then you read the text on the web page that you will get directed to. And when you come down to step 3 here, to this search box, you type in the journal that you want to look up. And then you will get rerouted to an external tool that we use that will give you a response. And if you're like me and you have read this text in step number 2 several times, then I have a direct link here for you to Journal Search Tool. You just scan this QR code, but remember to read the text at least once on step number 2. So I talked a lot about and showed a lot about different letters jumbled together, these Creative Commons licenses. So basically there are 6 different licenses, and 3 of them are often offered when you publish in academic journals. CC BY non-commercial, and CC BY non-commercial non-derivative. So with a CC BY license, if we keep it simple, you can say that you keep the moral rights to your work, the rights to be named as the author, but you give away all the economic rights to the public. And with a non-commercial, so a CC BY non-commercial license, you say you want to keep the commercial rights and give away the rest of the economic rights. And with a non-commercial, non-derivative, then additionally, on top of the commercial rights, you also say people can use my work, but they can't make changes to it. They have to use it in its entirety. They can't just take a figure from my article, for instance. They have to take the entire article. You might think that you want to publish CC BY non-commercial, for instance, and keep the commercial rights. Although I should say is that you might remember, all the funders demand that you publish CC BY. But on top of that, as an argument against publishing non-commercial, we have seen that many publishers, even though you remain the copyright holder of the commercial rights, you in practice sign an agreement where you lease the rights, the commercial rights, for the entire copyright period to the publisher. So in practice, you give it to the publisher instead of keeping it yourself. So this means that if you, for instance, publish a paper and later you want to publish a book chapter and want to reuse a figure that you have done, and you think it's my work and I kept the commercial rights, I can do it. Well, in practice, you have given it to the publisher and you might have to ask them for the rights to reuse your own work. Instead, if you would have published the work under a CC BY license, the rights would have belonged to everyone and you are part of everyone. So then you could just have used it without asking for permission or maybe even paying for using it. So if you have any doubt about which Creative Commons license to use CC BY. So I talked a lot about self-archiving. It can also be called parallel publishing, and in Swedish, parallell publicering. If you're figuring out what is this term that he's speaking about. And it's a free option to meet the funder demands. But remember that you need to use a CC BY license on the self-archived full text. It's not enough to just put it on Diva, the full text. It needs to have a CC BY license. Important. And also remember to register your research in Diva even when you publish open access. And you can do that yourself. Just follow this QR code or contact us and we will help you out. I have colleagues that works, they're very good at this. So if you think that it's tricky, just contact us and we will help you out. And here I just want to show a tool that's called the Publication Visibility. So if you have research that's registered in Diva, maybe perhaps just the metadata and not the full text, and you're uncertain about, maybe you publish so much so you have forgotten. If you have parallel published or self-archived, for instance, just type in your Leo ID and you will get a list back with your publications and what you can do with them and what maybe you haven't done with them that you want to do.